around that. But for now, let's head on over to Kimberly then as well, where our very own Refilwe Mekoa is standing by. Of course, she is at the results center there as well then. Won't you just share with us how exactly the situation is faring now, and what is the latest that you've got for us there?
Good afternoon, Arabile. Oh yes, just like you said, we're at the results center, and at the moment is quiet. There hasn't been any disruptions. So just like you, we're just going to speak to a local political analyst, Dr. Sethulego Matebesi, just to focus on the sporadic protest that occurred earlier on in Holpan, just outside Berkeley West. Dr. Matebesi, if you can just tell us, what do you make of these protests that are currently taking place, as we've seen this morning, where residents were trying to prevent EC officials from opening a voting station?
Well, we all know it has become a trend in South Africa now, a couple of days before each election, that you will find that people will go and almost like which is for me indicative of an alternative way of expressing their dissatisfaction with the government of the day. But for me, if you look at all the participatory governance structures that we have in our country, and I think the same applies to this province, but for me that is clearly indicative to say that our participatory governance structures at local government level has failed.
And why do you think people do resort to violence?
Well, it's quite clear that elections provide an opportune time for disgruntled community members. This is an opportune time. If you look at the number of service delivery related protests in this province, it's actually one of the lowest. But I mean, you can already predict what is going to happen, which are the next hotspots in the next elections, like for instance, Kuruman and all that. But that is an indication that perhaps unresolved grievances that has not been resolved in the time people are using elections to express their dissatisfaction.
Talking about dissatisfaction, do you think then these disgruntled residents get more attention when they protest during this time?
Well, studies have also indicated the role that the media plays, and you will also find that the more it is being reported on these violent protests, then obviously that attracts attention, and some people just want to become instant heroes, where they would like to actually emulate what have been happening in other provinces or in other areas. But we should also understand that we don't have a very responsive government, where it seems as if certain things first have to be burned down, and it's only then that you see almost like an immediate response from our government. And I think to a large extent this is the same the situation also happened in this province, where you also have crime intelligence, you've got community development workers, which should actually be the eyes and the ears of the government. And the question is, why can't we actually see the early warning signals of some of these violent protests that we have experienced?
Lastly, in future, what would you say to political parties to perhaps what can they do to try and gain the confidence of residents so that such protests don't occur again?
It's going to be very difficult. I think for me, where political parties have to start, especially with the governing party, we need to go back and revive our participatory governance structures. We've got ward committees, we've got local councillors, and if you revive that, and let us not politicize our governance structures. But for me, I strongly believe that, and this is something that we all understand, people do not just wake up and decide to go to the streets. And that's why I strongly believe that we need to constantly engage with communities. And how can we do that if we don't go back to the drawing board by actually reviving our participatory governance structures?
Thank you so much, Dr. Matebesi. That was our local political analyst here in Kimberly at the Results Center, just giving us his analysis about certain arrests that took place earlier on just outside Berkeley West at a voting station in Holpan.